Thanks so much for joining me. I'm Christy McDonald, coming to you from the Local 4 newsroom. Again, we have a verdict in the Jennifer Crumbley trial. She has been found guilty on all 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. We want to take you back to the courtroom, which just happened a couple of moments ago when the jury read their verdict. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
On count 1 of involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count 2 of involuntary manslaughter in regards to Tate Muir, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count 3 as to involuntary manslaughter regarding Hannah St. Juliana, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. And in count 4 of involuntary manslaughter against Justin Schilling, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
You can see not a lot of emotion there from Jennifer Crumbley, just looking down. Sean Lay joins me now live. Sean, let's go ahead and get some reaction from your vantage point inside the courtroom.
Well, Christy, I was sitting right behind Jennifer Crumbley, a few feet away. I was texting in the video we were shooting there from my perspective of the back of her head. She came in, of course, shackled, as we always see her deputies unlock those shackles. She seemed, of course, extremely nervous, but of course has appeared that way during this entire ordeal, this entire trial for her. So Shannon Smith, her attorney, pulled her aside. I could clearly hear her say, no matter what it is, stay calm. And Jennifer Crumbley said yes. Well, it was a blow then, obviously, to her. Maybe it was a surprise. Maybe she was feeling that the jury was out this late. They were deliberating some facts, and maybe this would be an acquittal. But the first charge was read by one of the jury members, the first conviction of guilty, and her head just went straight down, and she just kind of folded in and collapsed. There was a huge tension of emotion inside that courtroom. Right behind me was the father of Madison Baldwin, and he, strong guy, sitting there just looking forward, his wife holding his hand, patting his back, and he just was very steely-eyed, looking straight ahead. And then the last victim, Justin Schilling, verdict was read guilty on his horrible death, and his father was waiting for it, and it happened, and he just seemed to get relieved and seemed that some kind of accountability is now happening for this school shooting. Next, I'm going to text in some video here because Karen McDonald came around and gave Madison Baldwin's father a hug, and it was a long embrace, and you could just feel how much emotion, how much a toll this took on the families, the Oxford community, prosecutors, Crumbley family, defense attorney Shannon Smith, and that's how it is right now. We ran down here, Christy, with a member of the Oxford community. She said she didn't know how this was going to go. She said the longer it went, she believed it would be a hung jury. I said, what do you think? Guilty verdict? She says, okay, it could have gone either way. She said, my main point of being here is that the schools and people involved in the schools administration, people involved in this case also need to be held accountable. So taking it a step farther there. But that was the scene in the courtroom. Quite remarkable.
Absolutely. And Sean, we know that there are so many people who have been watching this and feeling it emotionally as well, members of the Oxford High School community who had children who were in the school that day. And again, we're talking about something that happened now over 2 years ago, and having to relive this and hearing all of the testimony, because the prosecution had to reset this case and show that, yes, this did happen, and this is how the shooter got the gun. And then this is what the involvement or lack of involvement was from Jennifer Crumbley, his mother, in this case. And what this really came down to, we were all wondering, how the jury would perceive her testimony, because it's her word essentially, and what she perceived her son was about and what she knew about his mental health or not. And it came down to the jury apparently just did not believe her.
That is correct. We would like to hear, of course, from members of that jury. We don't know if any members of the jury will be willing to speak with us, the news media, us at Local 4, of course, will be all ears. A couple of really skilled attorneys in our area, Christy, told me they believed before Jennifer Crumbley testified that the testimony and the evidence presented of the meeting there with school officials 90 minutes or so before the shooting. Gun is in the backpack, dean of students is there, counselor is there. They're all talking about this situation, and the husband here, James Crumbley, brought up the fact that there's a journal. And one attorney said that shows that both parents knew there was a journal. They thought that was extremely a key point there, that if the journal was, if you could see it, go through it, perhaps avoid this terrible tragedy. The other thing was, at that very meeting, not saying these words, we just bought a handgun. Where's the handgun? We just bought a handgun. That did not happen. And defense attorneys and veteran judges texted me saying they thought that was a critical moment in this case. Then Jennifer Crumbley got up, and I hear a lot of reviews on that situation, how no accountability whatsoever. I don't want to give my opinion, but her answers to questions were, husband did this, and school official, I took his advice, not really wrapping her arms around anything to explain her decision making through the process.
Yeah, and I think what stood out to so many people as we watched that testimony was when she was asked if she would do anything differently in this case. She said she wouldn't. And I think that that is a moment that stuck with so many people throughout this case. You know, when you take a deep breath and you look back at this now, Sean, we still have another trial. James Crumbley will be on trial for these same 4 involuntary manslaughter charges starting on March 5th.
Starting on March 5th, and then after that, Christy, let's not forget April 9th will be sentencing of Jennifer Crumbley. Back up to March 5th. So one of the lasting images this jury was left with, the lasting image, I'll tell you, Jennifer Crumbley in the Acme shooting range, walking out after shooting with her son, practicing with that case with the Sig Sauer 9mm in it. That was the last picture, and the last words from Marquise was, the gun was last in the possession of Jennifer Crumbley. You've got to secure it. That was what the message was sent loud and clear to the jury. You can't put it in your car seat. You got to put the lock on it. You got to put it in the safe. There was a safe. The investigators looked at the safe. The combination was 000, meaning it had never been opened. So that was the lasting image. The other image that we had is James Crumbley with the shooter buying the handgun. So that ties those two together.
Yeah, and you know, and I think when you have to look at what the jury had to look at in this case and falling under gross negligence, that you knew of the danger and you could have avoided injuring another by using ordinary care. And we heard that over and over and over again. And the prosecution really showing and painting the picture and showing to the jury, and that's why we're seeing the verdict coming back today, that if Jennifer Crumbley had made some small changes, if she had done some things, and if she had acknowledged the fact that her son had shown signs that he needed some kind of help, that there might have been a change in this case.
One more thing to point out, too, also pointed out to us by legal experts, is when Jennifer Crumbley was on the stand, one of the last things she told Marquise on cross-examination was the evening before the Oxford school shooting, there was an argument in the Crumbley household between school shooter, her son, 15 years old at the time, and Jennifer Crumbley about grades. And he left the house. It's unclear whether he was tossed out of the house during this argument or not, but he left the house. And Marquise, prosecutor, said, well, what happened after that? She said, we took his gun away. Her testimony, his gun away. We took his privileges at the range away. We took his phone away. Marquise jumped on that because we knew this was coming, that outside after that argument, the shooter recorded a long manifesto on his cell phone. The cell phone was not taken. And she put the gun in his hand by saying it's his gun. And so obviously she was not telling, that was not the case. That was not an honest situation here, saying we took his gun, we took his cell phone. He's outside recording exactly what he's going to do 12, 13, 14 hours later at Oxford High School, saying we have his phone. He had the phone. He was recording those things. And she said it was his gun. She retracted and said, we just took his range privileges away, but it was too late by then.